story.
For parents with special needs children, it is often difficult to find a good environment where the child can learn, develop at the same time. This compounded by the fact that there's a lot of stigma and discrimination against parents and children with special needs make it even a lot tougher.
If all I'm able to do in a day is to teach a child how to maybe lace their shoe, then that's enough.
It's not a disease. It's not a disease. It's just a different kind of wiring. So we need to accommodate them more than seeking to change who they are.
My name is Dr. Mercy Korir, and on this episode of Health Digest, we spend a day at the Nairobi Early Intervention Center with teachers and therapists who spend their time taking care of children with autism spectrum disorder. It is a quiet, regular school day at the Nairobi Early Intervention Center located within Lavington. Within these walls are about 30 children to whom this is not just an everyday school, but a center that has transformed them one step at a time, no matter how small.
When I receive a child who doesn't have a word, and then after a while, you see the joy on the faces of their mothers and their fathers being called daddy for the first time or mommy for the first time, it fulfills my desire.
In one of the classes is an occupational and a sensory integration therapy room. You may not think much about stepping down and walking on your bare feet, but for this boy, that otherwise normal activity causes him untold pain and anxiety. This session is aimed at slowly desensitizing him so that he's able to walk barefoot and touch surfaces without feeling like his world will end. It is uncomfortable, unnerving, but it has to be done regularly if he is to overcome that barrier. He's 4 years and one of the youngest boys in the school. Next to him is another session, learning how to be attentive and coordinating movement. The therapist demonstrates and the students follow the instructions. For the students, it is not as easy a task as it looks.
2, 3, waist. 2, 3, 4.
Victor Juma, one of the occupational therapists here, says that this is a calling.
We were very impatient people, but after some time you realize it's your patience that helps them learn, so you have no other choice.
Autism spectrum disorder is a developmental disorder term that includes all 4 types of autism, that is, childhood disintegrative disorder, classic autistic disorder, pervasive developmental disorder not otherwise specified, and Asperger's syndrome. Because a child can have all 4 types, Michael Mutunga, the center's director and head teacher, says that individualized care of the child is important.
A good learning environment for a child with autism is an environment where every child is taken as an individual. There's this saying that when you've met one person with autism, you've met one person with autism. So an ideal learning environment is that environment where people understand that each child is different. As services are being offered to that child, they be offered with that at the back of the mind, that this child is not the same as the other child with autism. So that is what we mean by ideal or a good learning environment for kids with autism. So now with that in mind, you realize that now what has to happen, and that is what we normally do in Nairobi Early Intervention Center. For every child, we normally create their own learning program. We call it individualized learning plan. which goes hand in hand with the personalized therapy plan. So this means that if I'm talking of child A and child B, these two kids have different individualized learning plan and a different individualized therapy plan. Besides that, the other thing that I can say is a component of a good learning environment for a child with autism is, the child being given so much attention, because what we have to realize is that a child with autism requires more than just education.
Mutunga has been a special needs teacher for 10 years now, but taking care of children with autism is transformational, he says.
To offer personalized learning, we normally take very good care of the teacher-student ratio. Most of our classes have a teacher-student ratio of like one teacher attending to 2 students. In some other situations, you find our teachers doing purely one-on-one. But now our classes are really small, and this is by design. Most of our classes have 4 or 5 students. In some cases, you may find a class with 6 students, but now we increase the number of teachers in that class. So our classes by design are really small so that this teacher can be in a position to offer personalized learning. Because one thing that people in this field, get to understanding is progress for kids with autism depends on how much contact time they have with their teachers, or how much contact time they have with the relevant professionals. When kids with autism are spending sufficient time and they're being engaged meaningfully, by the people working with them, then definitely things start falling in place. So that is the reason why our classes are really small.
And what is the age group? Here, the teachers and therapists believe in the saying that if you have met one person with autism, you have met one person with autism. No 2 children are the same, and the care and attention given to each child depends on their needs and cannot be a one-size-fits-all. 18 months of age is the global average age at which autism becomes apparent to friends and family members, because it is at this point that the child has failed to achieve normal verbal and social development milestones.
So, when you talk about attention, from a layman language, it appears to be something very, very easy, but attending skills have 3 levels. This has to do with 1, sustaining focus on whatever demand that is happening at that time, then being able to tolerate the sitting period. If this thing needs you maybe to sit for the next 30 minutes, are you able to sit there and go through it? And then the other part of attention has to do with the tolerance of the demand of the thing itself. For example, if you require to write, are you able to tolerate all the movements that are involved in that task? Yeah. So with that now we mean the child being able to develop the 3. I am able to sit, I'm able to sustain focus on whatever the demand is there, and then I'm able to go through the frustration of the different levels. We develop a sensory integration program. What happens, all of us, we have systems that help our brain to be able to function, and those systems are senses. What you hear, what you see, what you touch, what you smell, what you taste. So all these things have to work in a synchrony. If there's a problem, then you are not able to be able to function. So for example, what you feel like you can touch and tolerate, some of them, it becomes very, very, difficult to tolerate. Like it causes anxiety, like they cannot touch a rough thing. The threshold for touch to them becomes very high. Some even, for example, if you step on a marble, you can be able to tolerate maybe. Some of them, it's more painful, so they will avoid it. Yeah, some, the smell, the way I'm here, my brain is focused in a way that I can be able to, filter off the smells that I don't want. you know. So it's an automatic thing, but to some of them, they don't have that ability. So if we come here and all of us, we have different scents, they are getting all of them, and they cannot get adapted to them. So they become anxious, they, you know, some start crying, they run away. So you need to help them be able to do what is called sensory adaptation. So they start either tolerate it and be able to lower their anxiety level, or you come up with a way of, you know, helping them filter that. Yeah. So when they are not able to touch on something, what we do now, we start feeding them that sensation, so that with time they are able to tolerate it and be able to function. Those who cannot do it, we do what we call desensitization. So that means you know, introducing that sense little by little until the time they are able to tolerate it. Then you feed it fully, finally they are able to work within the environment.
At break time, the children have ample safe grounds to play. They ride bikes, kick footballs, swing, all manner of activities that children in a regular school would be doing during playtime. The only difference perhaps is that their teachers and therapists are with them throughout, since this is also part of the learning environment.
We are taking care of kids from 4 to 18 years. But ideally, from our name is Nairobi Early Intervention. Ideally, we have the capacity to take care of kids from slightly over 1 year all the way to 18 years, because we really place a lot of emphasis on the idea of early intervention. That is, providing support and providing services to kids, to toddlers especially, who are being suspected as having delayed milestones. So at the moment, we have kids from 4 to 18, but we still have the capacity to take care of a much younger group.
While the center does its bit for the children, the parents' involvement in this process is half the journey if the child is to develop some independence in doing the activities of daily living.
Daily, we receive children with different language needs, speech and language needs. So we help them go through their speech and language milestones depending on the goals that the parents and we, the therapists and their teachers have. So for example, when you receive a child who has a language delay, and the parents want the children to have at least language that will help them in their daily lives, asking for items, their basic needs, their requirements. When they are maybe somewhere and the children get lost, they need to be traced back to the parents. So functional language, that is, getting to know the foundations of language. Coming up with a therapy technique, you have to first of all get to know what this child likes to do. What do they love? You know, most of the time we talk about what we like doing. So if a child likes toys or a certain cartoon character, that's what we'll use to help this child talk to us, to help tap the knowledge that they already have by using their favorite toys and favorite activities. If it's a game that they like, that's what we use.
The parent has a very crucial role to play as far as interventions are concerned. And it starts from the very basic is the child being hands-on as far as the learning of their child is concerned. When a parent is hands-on, they have to work hand in hand with the school to know especially what the child did in a day, what the child is supposed to do maybe in a school term, in a school year. So once they know, because like when a child's program has been made, it is shared with the parent. And what we normally tell parents is, when you're given the program, you can pick certain activities and engage your child maybe in the evening or maybe over the weekend. When you look at a typical individualized learning program, you'll see things like, depending on the level of a child. Like a child is supposed maybe to color, to improve their fine motor skills. That is something a parent can do. You might find a child who's struggling with self-care. So maybe one of the goals the school is working towards is helping this child to learn how to dress up. So a parent can help and do certain of those things at home, maybe sitting with the child and practicing things like buttoning, practicing things like wearing socks, wearing shoes, so many. And that's why the parent has to work hand in hand with the school. When the parent understands what the school is doing, the parent has a whole bank of activities that he or she can do with the child at home.
On meals, it is a carefully selected menu since diet can help ease the symptoms. When sugar, casein found in milk products and gluten found in meat products are removed from their diet, children show better results of calmness, better sleep and concentration. Lots of water and fruits like watermelon, mangoes and passion fruits are good for hydration and detoxification of the system.
One really pressing issue is lack of relevant resources. And that is why we still find ourselves lagging behind certain other countries as far as special needs education is concerned, therapy provision is concerned, and supporting families is concerned. Sometimes you can find yourself maybe wanting to get a certain therapy equipment, but it's not available within the country. It has to be gotten from outside the country, and there's the whole of that process. Not many schools can afford, not many parents can afford. So there's always a problem with resources. Then there's the problem again with manpower, because to be able to work with, especially with kids with autism, one has to have the right attitude, one has to have passion, one has to be, to have a very high level of dedication. So sometimes it's very hard even for schools to get the right people to work with the children they have. So that's another challenge. And certain other things are like policy issues. As a country, we still don't have a very clear policy as far as autism is concerned. And later, it comes to affect the way we work, the way we are relating, perhaps with the ministry and all that. Yeah, but even with all that, we still do what we can.
Can I see better?
Special needs teachers like Joseph Chalo, who is also the assistant director at the center, says that despite the lack of resources, his inner desire to help children is unmatched.
3, 1.
I was motivated by one of my students I was teaching immediately after high school. Then the child has hearing problem. So when they could not hear what the teacher is saying, so she used to laugh loud. And then she was like given some funny nicknames by then teachers. And then it drew my attention. And then I said, this child needs some help, extra help. Then how can I get it? I joined special needs education. Then through that, I now got to know that I can now drag this child from this level of getting lost to now understanding it.
It is estimated that 4% of Kenyan children have autism, 25,000 alone being in Nairobi. The spectrum affects more boys than girls, where for every one girl with autism, there are 4 boys. Early diagnosis is important for the benefit of the child, but unfortunately in Kenya, due to a lack of resources for families, diagnosis often happens late at 3 to 4 years of age.
This depends on, how fast they are able to identify delays in their milestones, how fast they are able to pick some red flags as far as their growth and development is concerned. So what we normally advise parents as professionals is, as soon as you start having some concerns as far, which are touching on the development of your child, talk to a professional, talk to a doctor, talk to a therapist, like an occupational therapist, and these professionals will recommend either for an evaluation or for a screening, which might lead to a full assessment so that you can be told whether your child is at risk or not. So the earlier the better. So there are these two concepts, early identification, which goes with early intervention. So we advise parents not to wait, because sometimes if parents wait, it might take so much time, then the child loses a lot of precious time that can be used to provide relevant intervention. So if possible, as soon as the parent has concerns, they should talk to a professional, and mostly starting with a doctor.
14, 15.
Teacher Joseph Chalo is proud to have seen several children transition to regular schools.
Personally, I had the class that getting prepared for integration. So far, I have integrated around five kids that came to me when they knew totally nothing, including expressing themselves. Then we could go by signs. Then after signing, we got one word. Then now multiple words, making phrases, until now they can fit comfortably in a normal setup.
These small steps are big leaps for any child and parent. Children here can proceed to be in music or to beadwork later on in life, but some go on to live regular lives. I asked Mutunga about how they help the children and parents navigate through the adolescent stage.
Adolescence can be a very hard experience. It can be a very hard moment for them, because so much is happening within their bodies. So much is changing. There are the hormonal changes, and a lot of times you find such kind of kids not being able to control themselves anymore. And that is the time when we normally get a lot of onset of new problem behaviors. A child who was just cool and calm, they start becoming really hyper, or they start hurting themselves, they start hurting other people, because there is lack of understanding of, they don't know really what is happening. It can be a bit confusing. So, but now for kids who are able to understand, especially kids with a good receptive language, kids with good expressive language, they can be taken through a program that touches on their sexuality. We've seen a lot of kids, get better. Or we've seen a lot of kids being able to move through adolescence very well and very smoothly when they're exposed to such a program. There are still others who are not able to understand. You try explaining to them, and again they are not understanding. We still don't give up on them, and we use pictures to explain to them, along the way you expect this to change, and it's normal. Yeah, so it takes longer, but ultimately, we are able to manage them. It is very, very good to be observant as a parent. It is very good to, to read, especially content that has to do with growth and development of your child. If you do that, you make our work so easy, because any concerns that you have can be brought to us or other professionals who work with kids, and if there is any serious concern, the journey of intervention can start at that particular time, and the child will actually be in a position to overcome and perhaps be able to lead a normal life.
For parents, as a child continues to grow and age, autism is said to decrease. Early diagnosis and intervention, coupled with lots of patience then, is what makes the difference for these children. After spending time with the therapists and the teachers here, it is clear that autism spectrum disorder is not really a disease if each child is accommodated and their needs attended to individually. My name is Dr. Mercy Korir for KTN News Health Digest, but still to come is Doctor's Diary.
I grew up in a farm, have had good interest in livestock. My parents made us more interested in farming because of the kind of duties that they gave us. So one of the duties was actually to every morning for every calf before they are 3 months old, that would go and palpate behind their ears, because behind their ears there lives some lymph nodes.